This is Pittsburgh Sunday Morning. My name's Sean McDowell. If you'd like to be a guest on the program, if you're a member of a group or organization that has an upcoming cause or event that the listening community would be interested in, doesn't necessarily have to be a local cause or event, doesn't even have to be a nonprofit cause or event either. Contact me. My name again is Sean McDowell. My email address is my first name, and you spell Sean, S-E-A-N, Sean@DVE.com. I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. Welcoming to Pittsburgh Sunday Morning for the first time, it's our friends from the Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation. We have the president, Mary Newman, is here. Hey, Mary.
Hi, Sean. Thanks so much for having us.
Well, also on the phone, we have Sue Hostler from Bradford Woods. Sue was named winner of the 2014 Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation's People Saving People Award. Sue actually did save someone's life at Philadelphia International Airport a couple years ago. We're going to talk all about that this morning. Hi, Sue. How are you?
I'm doing great, Sean. How are you?
And Renee Farrow is here. Renee is the coordinator of the Southwestern PA affiliate of the Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation. Hey, Renee.
Hi, Sean. Thank you.
www.sca-aware.org, 877-722-8641. The mission of the Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation is to prevent death and disability from sudden cardiac arrest. The vision of the SCA Foundation is to increase awareness about sudden cardiac arrest and influence attitudinal and behavioral changes that will reduce mortality and morbidity from SCA, sudden cardiac arrest. Sudden cardiac arrest is not the same as a heart attack. With SCA, you're clinically dead. We're going to talk about that. Sudden cardiac arrest is a leading cause of death among adults over the age of 40 here in the USA. When it happens, 9 out of 10 people die. But when bystanders intervene by giving CPR and using automated external defibrillators, I'm going to struggle with that word all morning, AEDs, automated external defibrillators, if that's administered before the EMS crew arrives, like Sue Hostler did, 4 out of 10 victims survive. When sudden cardiac arrest occurs, Mary and Renee and Sue, blood stops flowing to the brain, the heart, and the rest of the body, and the person collapses, and they're clinically dead, and they will remain so until someone helps, like immediately. You have to move within 3 to 5 minutes, correct?
That's right.
Generally speaking, 3 to 5 minutes to save a life of someone who has just experienced sudden cardiac arrest. Unfortunately, only about 1/3 of SCA victims receive bystander CPR, and only 2% are treated with AEDs by bystanders. 2 of the visions of the Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation are to increase the rate of bystander CPR and to increase the rate of bystander use of AEDs. And once again, from the Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation, the president, Mary Newman, is here. Sue Hostler from Bradford Woods, the winner of the 2014 Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation's People Saving People Award. Sue on the phone actually did save someone's life at Philadelphia's airport a couple years ago. Renee Farrow is here, a coordinator of the Southwestern PA affiliate of the Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation, www.sca-aware.org. So we mentioned earlier, sudden cardiac arrest. It's not a heart attack. Very basically, Mary and Renee and Sue, a heart attack is more of a plumbing problem, while SCA is an electrical problem.
Yes, Sean, that's correct. When sudden cardiac arrest occurs, the heart stops beating altogether. The person is not awake and they're not breathing. Whereas with a heart attack, which is more of a plumbing problem in the heart, the person is still awake and is experiencing chest pain and other symptoms, and they're breathing. So that's one distinction between the two. A heart attack can lead to sudden cardiac arrest, but there are many other causes as well.
A heart attack, Mary was just talking about, that's the president of the foundation. Part of the heart's blood supply is reduced or blocked. The person usually is awake. They may complain of one or more symptoms of a heart attack, but with sudden cardiac arrest, your heart stops beating. Blood is no longer being pumped throughout the body, including the brain. The person appears to be lifeless. They are never awake, and if nothing is done, they will die within minutes. So someone needs to call 911 immediately. We're going to hear your story, Sue. They should administer CPR and also use the nearest, if there is one, automated external defibrillator, an AED. We're going to get into all this morning, but probably most of us have heard, Mary Sue and Renee, most of us have heard the phrase, he dropped dead from a heart attack. Does that mean that person dropped dead from sudden cardiac arrest? Because we already mentioned that heart attack survivors are usually still awake and able to speak, but not the case with sudden cardiac arrest victims. They're not awake.
Right. Sudden cardiac arrest leads to immediate loss of consciousness, and the person does drop dead. And quite often you will hear people talk about having a massive heart attack, and that a person died from a massive heart attack,
Yes.
and that they as you said, dropped dead from a heart attack. Most likely those are cases of sudden cardiac arrest, and it's just that the public in general doesn't, and the media often do not understand the distinction between the two.
Well, Mary and Renee and Sue, how many people know how to administer CPR properly, and how many people have ever used an AED, an automated external defibrillator, before? Not many.
Unfortunately, the rates are relatively low.
Yeah.
Sudden cardiac arrest affects about 1,000 people every single day in the U.S. And to get an idea of the magnitude of the problem, you can visualize if two jet planes crashed every single day in the U.S. and killed nearly everyone on board. That is the impact of sudden cardiac arrest. And unfortunately, only about a third of all cardiac arrest victims receive CPR from a bystander. So we need to really increase the awareness of the importance of bystander CPR. And unfortunately also the rate of use of AEDs, or automated external defibrillators, by the general public, it's less than 5%. So we need to do a lot more to educate the public about the importance of early defibrillation, because that can really make the difference between life and death.
On your website, www.sca-aware.org, there are instructions on both basic CPR and also how to use an AED. Sue Hostler, at the Philadelphia International Airport a couple of years ago, are you trained in CPR, and had you ever used an AED before you saved that young guy's life?
So, Sean, I had actually been trained in CPR many years prior to that event, but at the time that I was trained, AED use was not part of the training.
Well, I think Mary just mentioned, unfortunately, and we're going to get to your story, Sue, only about 1/3 of sudden cardiac arrest victims receive bystander CPR, and only 2% are treated with AEDs by bystanders. That's a big reason why 9 out of 10 people who experience sudden cardiac arrest die. I'm not trained by the American Heart Association, but I did, and my wife, we did pick up CPR training by a police officer, a friend of ours, who brought the Stowe Township. I mean, he brought the doll, the half-size doll.
Annie.
Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and he spent like an hour and a half with us in our living room explaining to us how to do CPR. I don't have a clue about. I have no experience with an AED, an automated external defibrillator. But you can't actually hurt anyone with an AED, correct?
That's right. That's right, John. The defibrillator will determine whether or not the person needs to be shocked, and it won't allow you to shock them unless they actually need the shock to restore a normal heartbeat.
And you don't need any training to use an AED, and you can't be held liable either, as the victim is already clinically dead,
Yeah.
and your actions can only help.
Right.
Correct.
You can't make them any worse off than they are. They are clinically dead. All you can do is give them a chance to be resuscitated and to come back to life. And thankfully, there are quite a few survivors of cardiac arrest because people took action.
There's the Good Samaritan laws to protect you as well. Sue, how difficult is an AED to use?
So actually, when I tell you my story, I actually did not use an AED because I did not have access to one in the area of the Philadelphia airport where this happened. So I just did CPR during this event.
Well, did they make it easy to understand, Mary and Renee? Someone who has zero experience using one, like me. Maybe a lot of people are really intimidated before they grab an AED, and
They are, Sean, and their adrenaline is pumping beyond belief. But the AED is an amazing instrument, and it walks you through step by step.
Oh, Mary brought one.
She sure did.
I'm looking at an AED right now.
So, again, it'll walk you through every step verbally, verbal commands, and you do exactly what it tells you. There's a diagram there that shows you where to place the pads, and it walks you through the whole process.
I didn't know that 80% of sudden cardiac arrest cases occur in the home, so it might be a good idea to buy your own personal AED to keep around. So I Googled AEDs for sale, refurbished. They run between $800 and $1,100.
Yes, and we have a program actually where people can purchase an AED for as little as $450, refurbished AEDs, and that's been successful in getting some AEDs distributed to organizations that might otherwise not have access to the devices, such as schools and churches, and also people have bought them for their home. So if you really want to protect your family, it's a good thing to do.
Is it true that sudden cardiac arrest often occurs in active people who seem to be healthy and have no known medical conditions?
Yes, that's very often the case, and sometimes sudden cardiac arrest is the first indication there is that they have a heart condition. They suddenly collapse, and that's not at all unusual. Renee can talk about some of the local cases that have occurred.
Yes, I'm sure you remember Sean Ferguson, the University of Dayton student that was struck by lightning.
Yes.
And the great thing about this case is Matt Lickenbrock, I hope I'm getting his name right, learned CPR 3 days earlier in a kiosk at the Dallas-Fort Worth airport.
Wow.
So 3 days before he learned that, he saw this gentleman go down with the lightning strike. He went over, he performed CPR. A nurse in the parking lot saw what was going on and continued CPR with him. And then the paramedics arrived and they shocked him. And Sean is amazing and doing very well. And that is a great story. And boy, would it be great to have some of those in all the areas so people can learn that. So that's a really good story. And then also the City of Pittsburgh EMS, Mr. Paramedic Jones went in before his shift, and he got a call right next to the police station that a police officer was down, and he grabbed the AED and his equipment and went over and resuscitated her, and she is doing fine. And then the marathon, too. We just had the Pittsburgh Marathon back in May, and a gentleman that was 25 years old went down right at the finish line. And all the medics and our city EMS doctor, Ron Roth, was there. And again, it was a good coordinated effort. They saved his life. And a lot of these are underlying conditions. These runners could have run for years and not had a problem, but again, it's mostly underlying issues that people are unaware of.
That's Renee Farrow, coordinator of the Southwestern PA affiliate of the Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation. And again, SCA often occurs in active people who seem to be healthy and have no known medical conditions. But some people can be identified in advance as being at risk for SCA. Risk factors include maybe you had a previous heart attack, coronary artery disease brought on by smoking, if you're a smoker. Maybe you have high blood pressure, you're diabetic, you have high cholesterol, maybe a family history of heart disease, and a sedentary lifestyle. Also, recreational drug use. Are we talking about prescription drugs here mostly? Heroin, cocaine?
Probably all of the above.
Marijuana?
I don't think so.
It's our friends from the Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation. The president, Mary Newman, is here, and Sue Hostler, who has a fascinating story. She's the winner of the 2014 Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation's People Saving People Award. Sue actually did save someone's life at the Philadelphia airport a couple years ago. Renee Farrow, we were just talking to. The mission of the Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation is to prevent death and disability from sudden cardiac arrest. www.sca-aware.org. Sudden cardiac arrest is not the same as a heart attack. It's a leading cause of death among adults over the age of 40. When it happens, 9 out of 10 people die. But when bystanders intervene by giving CPR and using AEDs, automated external defibrillators, before the EMS crew arrives, 4 out of 10 of those victims survive. So, sudden cardiac arrest, blood stops flowing to the brain, the heart, the rest of the body, the person collapses. They're clinically dead. They will remain so until someone helps immediately. You have between 3 to 5 minutes to save a life of someone who just experienced sudden cardiac arrest. But unfortunately, only 1/3 of SCA victims receive bystander CPR, and only 2% are treated with AEDs by bystanders. Two of the visions of the Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation: increase the rate of bystander CPR and to increase the rate of bystander use of AEDs. Can they live through more than one episode of sudden cardiac arrest?
Yes, they can. Most survivors of sudden cardiac arrest then receive implantable cardioverter defibrillators, ICDs, which prevent future risk, of suffering cardiac arrest and not surviving. So when you have an ICD, if the heart goes into an arrhythmia, the ICD will shock the heart back to a normal rhythm. So it's a good safety measure for people who have survived cardiac arrest.
There's wearable defibrillators and implantable defibrillators. Right. Okay.
And the wearable defibrillators actually are made by a company that's local to Pittsburgh, Zoll Life Core.
Oh.
And the wearable defibrillators are used to kind of serve as a bridge between the time the person survives cardiac arrest and can get an implantable defibrillator. There's a period of time before they can receive the ICD, and many people wear those defibrillators during that interim period.
As far as preventing sudden cardiac arrest, living a healthy lifestyle, it can't hurt. Exercising regularly, eating right, or maintaining a reasonable weight, not smoking, monitoring your high blood pressure, your cholesterol levels, diabetes if you're a diabetic. Hopefully you'll never be in this situation, but should you be, someone has just collapsed in front of you. Sue, winner of the 2014 Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation's People Saving People Award. Sue Hostler from Bradford Woods on the phone with us right now. So tell us what happened, Sue.
Sure, Sean. So I was running to catch an elevator in a remote part of the Philadelphia airport, and just before I got there, the door closed. So I pressed the button, and when the door opened, to my shock, there was a man lying face down in the elevator. So there was a young woman behind me, and I told her to immediately run out to the curb and try to flag down a police officer or emergency personnel. And I got into the elevator, called 911 on my cell phone, and let them know that there was a man unconscious in the elevator and he wasn't breathing. The woman who I asked to help came back once, and then she left. Fortunately, another lady, a wonderful woman by the name of Vivian Nolan, who was a cancer survivor in town for a conference, happened to stop by and asked if she could help me. So I asked her to please help me turn him over. He's a very tall man. And when we did, I was really surprised to see that he was very young. It turned out he was 25 years old.
Right.
So I asked Vivian to then keep going to the curb to check while I was on the phone with 911, told 911 exactly where we were, and I initiated CPR. In spite of telling them over and over again the exact location of where we were at the airport, I've probably been in that airport a couple of hundred times as a business traveler. They couldn't locate us. So I ended up having to do CPR for about 15 minutes or so till the EMTs finally arrived.
Wow, that's a workout too. What is it? Compressions a minute to the Bee Gees song,
right?
Staying
It's
Alive?
100.
Right.
100.
100. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man,
About 100.
That's
yeah.
Oh, geez.
Well, it's pretty amazing what you can do when the adrenaline is surging. We were very fortunate, had a great outcome. The paramedics, when they arrived, shocked Bob. His name is Bob Hallinan, and took him to a local hospital where he was then transferred to a specialty hospital, with a cardiac care unit, and they placed him into a medically induced coma. Eventually implanted an implantable defibrillator, and about 2 weeks later, he was released from the hospital. And after the fact, I found out that he was a very healthy, at least up until that day, very healthy, active, athletic 25-year-old man with absolutely no history of heart disease. So it certainly was a very good example of how sudden cardiac arrest can happen to anyone at any time.
That's an amazing story from Sue Hostler from here in the Pittsburgh area, Bradford Woods. She saved a young man's life at the Philadelphia International Airport, a guy who just dropped over from sudden cardiac arrest a couple of years ago. Now, you didn't use an AED, but to ask Mary and Renee, should you remove the person's shirt or sweater or blouse to hook up the AED? That might be a little uncomfortable.
Yes, that's what you do. You have to apply the pads to the
a bare chest.
Bare chest.
Okay,
yeah.
You can't put it over a shirt. You can't put it over.
No,
okay.
no.
And it gives you vocal prompts. The machine itself knows. The AED knows if a shock is needed.
Yes, that's correct.
Right.
Okay, and it can't hurt you. The AED will not administer a shock unless a shock is needed. Correct.
That's right.
Okay. And with sudden cardiac arrest, again, the person is clinically dead and cannot get worse, so your actions can only help. And unfortunately, as we've mentioned this morning, only about 1/3 of SCA victims receive bystander CPR. Only 2% are treated with AEDs by bystanders, and two of the visions of the Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation are to increase the rate of bystander CPR and to increase the rate of bystander use of AEDs. www.sca-aware.org. Renee, what is being done locally to raise awareness about the rate of people just standing around knowing how to do CPR like Sue did in Philadelphia a couple years ago? Also, the rate of people like me having never used an AED.
Well, again, we serve a 10-county area, and we're headquartered here in Pittsburgh. And it's just constant. Mary writes so many articles. She is a renowned writer in this field. Pittsburgh is on the map with this, and it's just getting out any place that we can be. We do an event with Jamie Dixon. His sister passed, unfortunately, from this. So we do a health expo fair at the Peterson event.
Peterson Event Center, yeah. Susan Copen was going to be from KDKA TV. She was going to be a guest this morning. We couldn't make that happen. But didn't she drop over from sudden cardiac arrest?
She was running, and again, the timing was perfect. If there is a timing to be perfect with this, as she was running, I think one gentleman knew CPR, and he jumped into action and got some help, and then the medics came. And again, with our city paramedics,
she was lucky.
She was very lucky, but we have a fast response team. We're very lucky. Pittsburgh is on the map, and again, with Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation being here in Pittsburgh, but our outreach goes nationally. And Mary does an excellent job with getting us where we need to be and writing her great articles and kicking up the just letting everyone know where we're at, what we're doing.
To our friends from the Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation, that was Renee Farrow, coordinator of the Southwestern PA affiliate of the Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation, and also on the phone with her fascinating story. She saved a life a couple years ago. A young guy had dropped over from SCA, Sudden Cardiac Arrest, in Philadelphia's airport. That was Sue Hostler from Bradford Woods, winner of the 2014 People's Saving People Award. And the president of the Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation, Mary Newman here, www.sca-aware.org. The mission to prevent death and disability from sudden cardiac arrest, increasing awareness about SCA. Sudden cardiac arrest is not the same as a heart attack. It's a leading cause of death among adults over the age of 40 here in the USA. And when it happens, tragically, 9 out of 10 people die. But when bystanders intervene by giving CPR and using an AED before the EMS crews arrive, 4 out of 10 victims survive. 1/3 of SCA victims receive bystander CPR. Only 2% are treated with AEDs by bystanders, and those are two of the visions of the Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation, to increase the rate of bystander CPR and to increase the rate of bystander use of AEDs. Again, www.sca-aware.org. The phone number is 877-722-8641. Sue, you're probably in an airport right now, right?
Well, I'm on my way to an airport, Sean, yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning, Sue.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to share this information with your listeners.
It's a fascinating story. Thank you, Renee.
Thank you, Sean. And again, just increasing the awareness. You can also donate and become a member of our Survivors Network. We're always reaching out, and I can't thank you enough for having us here today. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Thanks so much, Sean. We really appreciate the opportunity to speak with your listeners and would encourage people to learn CPR and to become familiar with AEDs and not to hesitate to use them if they're ever faced with an emergency situation.
Mary, before we go, you wanted to add something?
Yes, two things. One is that October is National Sudden Cardiac Arrest Awareness Month, so we really appreciate the timing of this opportunity. Also, there is legislation in Pennsylvania now that would make CPR and AED education mandatory before high school graduation, so we support that.
This has been Pittsburgh Sunday Morning. My name's Sean McDowell.